Welcome to Surf Kayak and Waveski Surfing, a beginner's journey. I'm your host, Richie Guerrero. In this multi-part series, we'll talk about all the things that a beginner might be going through, as I've been going through them myself. We'll be talking about different surf kayaks, wave skis, equipment, and how to ride waves. But more importantly, how you can have the most fun possible in the sport of surf kayak and wave ski surfing. Hello everyone, welcome back. This is episode 2 of Surf Kayak and Waveski Surfing, a beginner's journey. I'm Richie Guerrero. I'm in Long Island, New York. Today we're going to talk about plastic sit-on-top surf kayaks. But before we do, check out that clip in the beginning, the black and white one of the rider on the Kayaks dropping into this wave. It looks like he's barely holding on, which I've been in that position before. And, these surf kayaks, if you're expecting them to turn by leaning back and, throwing your paddle off to the side and really not shifting your weight on these surf kayaks or wave skis, it's going to be a lot harder to turn and sometimes almost impossible, almost like that video. So just keep in mind, whether it be a surf kayak, a sit-on-top plastic surf kayak, a wave ski, that especially if you get to the bottom of the wave like that gentleman did, definitely want to try to, when you lean out, you don't just want to lean out. You actually want to use your thigh straps or your feet or your waist belt. And when you do lean out, you want to try to get the board to come with you. So if you ever get a shot of you on the beach or someone shooting video and you're doing a bottom turn, you should see as much of this bottom of the board as possible. And it's really going to help accelerate your turn and actually create speed and drive. Today we're just going to talk about the 3 most readily available kayaks: the Dagger Kaos, the Cobra Strike, and the Perception 5.0, made by kayak companies that specialize in either touring, fishing, or whitewater kayaks. The big name makers. Today we're not going to talk about the Maxi Phoenix or the Atlas kayak, the Fury, only because they're a little bit of an upgrade. They're a little bit specialized, both in their own separate ways. But we'll do a proper video for them in the springtime. But before we look at those kayaks, my first plastic kayak was a Competition Kayaks 3.4. I think New Canoe also had their hand in that. But if you take a look, it was about 11 feet, heavy, maybe 45 pounds, I'm thinking. The only thing that I didn't like was that the fin was a little too far back. And we'll talk about that issue as we get into this a little more. My second kayak was a Cobra Strike, and I had it all tricked out, and it was great. I rode that for about a year. But if this is your first time surfing a plastic sit-on-top kayak, or if you're thinking about choosing a sit-on-top plastic kayak, there's so many variables about what you're like, what you weigh, What's your paddling ability? What kind of waves are you surfing in these things? So many variables. And you know what? All of these are a great choice, especially if you're new to the sport. And if you're not new to the sport and you're looking for something a little different, you're looking to change things up, you might want to add one for a different type of wave break or different conditions. And especially if you're not a whitewater or sea kayaker and you don't know how to do the Eskimo roll and roll your kayak, this is definitely a good choice. So let's talk a little bit about these.
All right, so they're all on the screen and they all weigh about the same. Let's say they're in the 10-foot range. They're all close to 40 pounds. But if you look at the shape, the aerial view, they all have a surf kayak and wave ski shape. Some, a little difference in the nose and the tail and the body. But when you look at the side view is when the differences start to pop up. And we'll talk about rocker and flat planing surface. So if you look at the Cobra Strike, you can see the bottom, it's a lot more flat, especially underneath the seated area, with some rocker, some curve at the nose and the tail. It doesn't have a lot, but whoa, look at the Perception 5.0. It's almost like a banana. So it's got a lot of rocker all the way from the nose to the tail, just a constant curve. And the Dagger Kaos has some nose rocker and it's very flat through the center and to the tail. But rocker is going to technically make it easier to turn that boat with some other factors involved, but you're going to be pushing a little more water when you're paddling out to the surf, and you're going to be a little slower when you're paddling into the wave. But in combination with a sharp rail, meaning if you look at the Perception 5.0, I can see the highlights there, that it's got a rail. I can see it sharpens up for plastic. The Cobra Strike, it's got a big planing area underneath the rider, and that rail goes all the way from the nose to the tail. And the Dagger Kaos, it's a little softer. It rounds off a little more. But if you think about the Perception 5.0, the combination of the rocker with that sharp rail is, if you lean it on its side while you're moving and you get the rail into the water, just the overall shape is going to create a turn. It's going to cause the boat to turn, and that's kind of what you want. In combination with, where are the fins? So if the Dagger Kaos has the fins, they're a little far back. Your pivot point is where the fins are going to be. So if it's all the way at the tail and all your weight is in the center of the kayak, it's going to be a little more difficult to turn. So the Perception and the Cobra Strike, when it comes to fin placement, are a lot better. And just keep in mind, at the beginning of this video, there's a black and white clip of someone in a Dagger Kaos dropping in on a wave, and he leans all the way back with the paddle off to the side, and he's almost holding on and sliding. He's really not turning that kayak on its rail and doing a proper turn with an edge. So this is where the rocker and the rail and the fin placement are going to come into play. And as far as where you sit in these kayaks, the Perception is not as deep. You can see that. Look how thin that is compared to, let's say, the Dagger Kaos and even the Cobra Strike. So this is a little more like a wave ski design, where you're not really sitting into a big recessed area. You're sitting more like a wave ski with a little indentation. And you can see here, there's no back band, there's no seat back. Although you can, I've seen people ride them on Perception 5.0. But one thing we'll talk about here is how you fit into these kayaks. So let's just zoom into these a little bit and we'll talk about them individually. So if you look at the Cobra Strike, I'll zoom into this a little bit. You can see you've got your footwells here. You've got an option for foot straps, thigh straps, and a back band, 4 scupper holes to drain the water, really nice. And you can see here that they do ship a foot platform, but I'll show you what a lot of us do, which is what Ross has done right here. He's created a mini sail foot platform out of foam and rubber cemented it in. And he's using thigh straps here. And what I like is this keeps his toes pointed more north and keeps his knees inside the kayak. And just a couple pictures here. We talked about rocker, and I can see he's got plenty of room under that nose. He's not going to nose dive. He's on a 3-foot wave with a nice rail into the wave face. And my buddy Tom here has got plenty of lift, and he's actually only strapped in with a homemade foot strap that goes across the kayak. No thigh straps, no waist belt, and he's a former surfer who's doing this, and he's adapted to it really well. And if you look at the bottom, you can see this channel under the rail, and it's going to give you a lot of grip into the wave. And these channels also are going to move water under the body of the kayak. And this is a 3-inch fin. They also offer a 5-inch fin. I personally use the smaller fin just because I like it a little looser. And if we look at the Perception 5.0, we can see this Waveski design here. And even though it's a single fin, it might be hard to see, but there are some channels on the bottom here to give you a little extra grip. And one thing that's kind of neat is this adjustable foot platform, which is on a metal track. So you just tighten it up and loosen it up and move it forward or backward. And it's got some recessed area for your heel here. And we can see this rider here. You see how he's not really sitting into the kayak as much because it's shallower. It's a little more Waveski-like. And if we look up here, here's probably the benefit to having something with more rocker, something that's shallower, is that once you lean off to the side, and notice he's not ruddering backwards, he's leaning off to the side, he's got his paddle off to the side, the rail is going to be digging into that wave, and the shape of the rocker is really going to help create a bottom turn. And if you're looking to do a little more hot dogging, then the Perception 5.0 might be for you. So now if you look at the Dagger Kaos, one thing that I'm not a fan of is the sharp footwells. And this is great if you're sharing it amongst other people of different heights. But when you put your feet in here, the rest of your leg, the shin and the calf area, is going to be hitting some of this once you put the thigh straps on. And the one scupper hole here is going to create a geyser to go off right in your face, which this is that picture. So you see the splash right here, that's coming up from the scupper hole. And every single time you bounce on a wave, that's going to happen and hit you right in the face. So it's kind of a design flaw. And when I talked about the footwells, we can see here that once you put your feet in and they start angling sideways, which is what they'll do, your legs are actually going to be touching these sharp edges. And even though it's plastic, yeah, I mean, once you start bouncing around and once you tighten up the thigh straps, it's going to push your legs right into these little edges, which I'm not a fan of. And this is the bottom. It's got 3 fins. It's got 1 larger fin in the back, 2 smaller side fins, some channels to give you extra grip. And once again, you can see the softer rail, how it kind of rounds a little bit here. And they do have a little bit of an edge, so maybe that will counteract and give you a little more grip into the wave. So hopefully this helps in choosing a kayak if it's your first time, or if you want to switch or try something different. But another thing to keep in mind is if you weigh 160 pounds and you're athletic and you do a lot of paddling, it's going to be a different experience than if you're 250 or 275 pounds and you don't really go kayaking that much. Or what do you really want to get out of the wave? And are your waves more steep, or are they a little more mushy and flat? You know, if your waves are already fast and steep and you want to do some high performance maneuvers in those steeper, faster waves, you already have the speed, so something like the Perception 5.0 might make sense. If your waves are a little smaller and sluggish, and you need to actually generate more speed, something with a greater, flatter area like the Cobra Strike with less rocker might be the answer for you. But whatever you choose, listen, have fun. These come up on the East Coast USA Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist pretty regularly used. So I've bought them used in the past and experimented and had fun with them. So I hope you guys do the same.
These GoPro videos that we'll watch right now, I've also thrown in the Mega Banshee, which is a sit-inside kayak, only because it weighs about half of what the sit-on-top plastic kayaks weigh. It's carbon fiber and Kevlar, just like this one, and it just gets tremendous lift once the speed starts happening. And you can kind of tell in the video that it's moving a little bit faster. And the GoPro is actually mounted up a little higher, so the wave might look different. But I tried to find waves at the same surf break that were around the 2 to 3 foot range. And yes, they're all a little different with the tide and the wind and such. But at least you can kind of see what's possible. So listen, thanks for watching, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you have any ideas, comments, ideas for another episode, please leave your comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel and leave your comments down below. You can also follow me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and I'm also a member of the East Coast Waveski Association.